I've been thinking about and trying to do a video on forestry mulching, like where it's going and where I think, oh my goodness, look at this, I'm just dropping everything. I guess you can't see it, but where forestry mulching is going and my opinions on it. This is just my opinion. I don't know, we can take some, I'll just go ahead and take some time now and we'll just kind of jump in and out of the subject as we're going along the job. So one of the things, give you guys a little background, you know, I got started in the forestry mulching right about 10 years ago, something like that, I think. No, 11 or 12 years ago. Yeah, because Sadie just turned 11. Yeah, so I was in my, like, doing it full time 11 years ago. So when I first got started in the forestry mulching business, there's a video out there of how I got started and stuff like that, if you guys want to watch it. Or if anybody is in the mulching business or watches my videos, they probably have already seen that one. So we're not going to get in how I got started, but where we're at right now, 11 years into the business. So, you know, we started out with bobcat seed steers and pecan. I had a Lofness head for a very, very short period of time, and then after that we got into pecan heads and went from there, you know. What's that? Yeah, that'd be great. So once I got really up and going, you know, Willie was working for me at the time, and it was just me and him, and you know, we were doing pretty good. We were getting off the ground, and we did a lot of work actually off of Craigslist. That was like our main market was Craigslist, and you know, we kind of catered towards landowners and homeowners and stuff. Where something like this, you know, it got away from them, and they just needed to get it under control. So, you know, I'd say 3 years in, I'd say we did a couple like home and garden shows and stuff, and the business was doing very well. Nothing to complain about. You know, we were growing, we were hiring people. I don't remember what time we started, or when we started getting more employees and trucks and all that stuff, but as the business started growing, you know, it was still doing good. We were still happy. You know, we made a decent living. We weren't running to the bank or anything like that, but you know, the business paid, you know, me and Jody, you know, we paid ourselves out of the business. Let's push this log a little bit out of the way. And you know, we ran for years doing that, and then we got to the point where all we did was forestry mulching. We ended up with 2 machines, kind of 2 crews. All right, gonna try to do a little better, stay on track here. So we're doing really good. Forestry mulching was still very, very new, and that's actually one of the reasons why we started the YouTube channel. YouTube, goodness, channel was to show people what forestry mulching was. At the time, I had watched probably every video that was out there on YouTube about forestry mulching, and there was not that many. You go back, I don't know if you can, but you know, 11, 12 years ago, maybe 13 years ago, there was not that many videos on YouTube. So what I was doing is, we would film our jobs, and then I was actually using that to show people how a project would look, how like oh, this we got kudzu, or you know, whatever we were doing, thinning or something like that. I would show them, like, all right, so this is what forestry mulching can do. And so that's kind of how we got into the YouTube. At that point in time, there was like Dennis Seamoff, FAE, Fecon, you know, Bobcat was starting doing some rebranding, and then I had bought one of the ones that just came out with a variable speed pump. So all the old pumps were one speed. So you hit the high flow, and then it took a long time to spool up. But once it spooled up, and you hit wood, you had to pull out and then let the drum recover. So it was a lot of like back and forth. Like you go in, bog it down, pull it out, let it recover, and then keep going. So there was a lot of that going on. So there was a bunch of that style of heads out on the market. The technology for the pumps just wasn't there yet. And the machines weren't there yet. Terex was the only machine, well, at the time, you know, now it's ASV, but it was ASV, then it got bought and sold by Terex and stuff. I'm having troubles with this. Time, the machines really didn't have the technology, the pumps, the cooling systems, stuff like that. There was very few out on the market, and then the pumps weren't there. So the technology was still very, very new. You know, a lot of guys who tried to get into it, ow, that hurt. A lot of guys who tried to get into it, they didn't get very far just because machines were catching on fire. You saw a lot of that. The cooling wasn't there, productivity wasn't there. But there were still people in the area doing it, but it was very few people. There was probably, in the greater Greenville area, which is a huge area, at the time when I first got started, there was maybe 10 or 15 cutter heads that I knew of. Like a dealership, a dealer was like, oh yeah, we've heard of those, we've sold one, or we've seen one. Like if you saw one, it was kind of like, it was super rare. Like I remember driving out to a job and looking at one on an excavator, and I just sat there and watched it for, you know, 45 minutes and talked to the guy, and he had been in it a little bit longer than me. So that was kind of about 12 years ago. So fast forward about 5, 6 years ago, I don't know, 2019, 2018, something like that, everything started taking off as far as for the forestry mulching. The manufacturers, the pumps, the Chinese stuff, Kubota had a huge role in this. They came out with a very, very cheap, inexpensive mulching machine. Skid steer, high flow skid steer. Got it. And which, you know, I know guys that run Kubota and they love them. That's great. That works for them. But it was a very inexpensive. You could probably save about $25,000 to $30,000 at the time by buying a Kubota versus a Caterpillar, Takeuchi, or an ASV. So it was kind of like, it was a cheaper way to get into it. And then you started having these off-brand, I say off-brand, these other manufacturers that, you know, they built brush cutters, they built grapples, they were in the industry, but they weren't like Vicon or Dennis Seamoff or FAE. You know, those are still, in my opinion, the top 3 out there. They've been doing it the longest. They know what they're doing. You know, everybody's, you know, it's always like this big, or in gyro track, you know, they're like, oh, you stole my patent, you stole this, you stole that. I don't know, I don't care. But, so that was about 5 years ago. All these, we would go to a show or something like that, and then you started having, we would go to a show and you would start having all these, everywhere you turn there was brush cutters. And you know what, a halfway decent one was in, you know, between $20,000 and $30,000, and all of a sudden you start having ones for $10,000 or $15,000. It might not perform as well, and you might not have to have the greatest, baddest machine, but it still got the job done to a degree. You know, there's always quality and all that. So at that time we had 2 machines and three-ish guys, 3-4 guys in and out, and we were, and I was just starting to see kind of the effects of that a little bit. You know, we started getting, we used to go out, say I bid 10 jobs. I would drive out there, go look at 10 jobs. While we're out there, I would very rarely, I would be the only guy to look at the job. You know, there wasn't a lot of people to call who are in the industry. There's a couple guys in Anderson or south of us or north of us, but in our area there was very few people who did it. So I kind of held the market in our area for a very long time, and we had a specific job we were looking for. So we never liked really big jobs, as far as like a 5-acre plus job for us. That was a very big job. People are like, oh, I want the big jobs, I want the big jobs. Nah, you really don't. They kind of suck. They really do. They don't pay as well and stuff. So we had figured out a niche in smaller backyard projects, and I say like a small mini farm, you know, clean up the edge, thinning and stuff. So we found what we like to do, in and out one day. That was number one, in and out one day, and something that can be done with either 2 or 3 guys. So but to do that, and we usually we forestry mulch 4 days a week was on average of what we did. So usually either rain, a breakdown, or I was out looking at jobs, or we were cleaning and maintaining for the next week. So on average 4 days a week, the machine was running. Sometimes we would run 5-6 days a week, but on average we ran 4 days. So I ended up getting into a little bit of dirt work, because I was passing off a lot of dirt work, some bigger clearing jobs where, you know, someone would come in and say, hey, can you mulch this out? And we're like, well, that's not really a mulching job, that's a land clearing job, because they're different. They're completely different. Mulching is you're clearing the air, all the root system, everything is still left on site. Land clearing, you're digging out the stumps, you're hauling it off, you're burning it, you're getting rid of all of it. So we started getting into some dirt work. We're like, oh, this is kind of cool, you know. So we'd clear off a lot with we had a 130 at the time. We cleared off, we'd mulch up the tops, haul the stumps or burn the stumps, do a little dirt projects and stuff. And it was a good gig for a little bit. We did good at it, and we made do with what we had. That was the thing. I was trying to utilize the equipment that I had owned at the time. So I was kind of in between doing dirt and mulching, and then Willie and Josh, 2 employees that worked for us, Willie was pretty much always on mulching. He ran the mulching machine. And then we started getting into, fast forward, you know, 2 or 3 more years, and then we started getting into, Ventrac reached out to us, and then we started getting into cutting a lot of retention ponds. And we did that for years. We always cut retention ponds, and it was usually pretty good money. It was always something that nobody else wanted to do. You know, if you looked at it, you're like, that looks absolutely horrible. Why would anybody want to do that? We had the right equipment, and we knew how to do it. It was a lot of hard work, but we did them. And then we got into maintaining our ponds. So we went from cutting in and out to then we're like kind of maintaining and stuff. And then the business started slowly going towards, we were cutting fields we always did this, but it kind of grew into that a little bit more. So we were cutting more fields, we were cutting more like stuff that a guy with a 0 turn didn't want to cut, and then, but it was like too small for like to bring a big tractor out for a bush hog. So we use that Ventrac a lot, and we did a lot of bush hogging with the skid steer and stuff. So we did a lot of bush hogging. We're just again, I was trying to utilize the equipment I had at the time. So what I was realizing is I had to be me. I had to be selling jobs like at least 2 to 3 days a week, as you know, and that's part of my role, you know, as the owner and stuff, and you know, looking for work, making contacts, and going out and looking at all these jobs. But I was driving like you know, just all over creation, sometimes looking at 7, 8, 9, 10 jobs a day, and then what would happen, I was like, oh man, we sold 2 weeks worth of work, you know, we're good to go. I usually like to say about 2 to 3 weeks out when we were mulching full time. But what would happen is we got faster and we got more efficient, and we were just blowing through jobs. Like, I was like, good grief, guys, like, I didn't want to tell them to slow down, but at the same time, like, I couldn't sell jobs fast enough. So that was one of the things. And at that same time, I started running into more and more. I was like, man, you know, why aren't we getting that work? What, you know, we used to just show up and we used to get, I'd say 8 out of 10 jobs we looked at, and then it started, you know, 6 to 7, and you know, closer to 4 to 5, and it just kept getting worse and worse and worse as far as how many I was looking at. So then I started realizing that I had people call me who, like, literally in the same 5 miles from where I was at, like, hey, I'm wanting to start a forestry mulching business. How do I get into the business? How do I do this? And I would get calls all the time for people, not just locally, but like all across the country, you know, just due to YouTube. And, you know, I kind of chalked it up as, you know, that's fine. That's part of me doing YouTube, is this, and you know, it's okay. And the more I did it, the more I did YouTube, the more it almost kind of, I don't know, if you take a step back and look at it, I think I actually hurt my own business by doing YouTube in our area. And people just saw it as, oh, there's tons of work out there, you know, I'm gonna get a mulcher, so-and-so's gonna get a mulcher. You know, I used to do a lot of work for a lot of big tree companies. I was their #1 guy they go to for mulching. Almost all but one company I know of, they ended up buying their own mulcher, just due to how they've come down in price, and they saw how efficient we were with it. And I don't know, you know, a lot of guys didn't want to spend the money at the time, but more and more, we did tons and tons of work for tree companies. You know, there was probably 6 or 8 tree companies that I did work for at the time that, hey, we got this, you know, thicket or brush or treetop to come out and mulch, and that was fine. We did great. We did that for years. There's still one tree company we do a good bit of work for. They're probably one of the biggest in Greenville, but we still do work for them occasionally. And there was different salesmen that they knew what to look for, they knew how to sell the job, and we had a good gig going there, but we still do work for them. But what I was finding is the mulching it kept getting, like, the competition. I swore I never give out numbers and my pricing on YouTube. Like, it's something that really frustrates me. It really bugs me, because there's other YouTubers out there that do it. So we do everything by the job. Every single job is by the job. It's not by the hour. And for an example, I would have guys call me like, hey, I'm in, you know, Minnesota, I don't know, like, I'm doing forestry mulching per acre for, or I'm just using these numbers. These do not go off these numbers at all. I'm doing forestry mulching for $1,100 an acre. I tell you right now, you are not making you are making $0 if you are doing it for $1,100 an acre, something like this. It is not going to work. You are not making a dime. Then I'd have guys down in Florida, like, man, we are getting $4,000 to $5,000 an acre. What are you talking about? Like, okay, that's great, you know, good for you. And then we'd have, you know, people always want to know my pricing. What is your pricing? What is your pricing? I never tell them my pricing. Every single job is different. Just like this little quarter-acre lot, well, all these tires, all this debris in it and stuff, you know, we just bid it, we put a number on it, we have a range we stay within. But for an example, so let me try to back up. I'm trying to give you guys information, but I'm not trying to give you too much information. You know what I'm saying? You still have to do the hard work. There's still hard work. You have to figure out what your numbers are, what your overhead is, and then go from there. What do you need to make a day? You know, how long is it going to take you? I don't know. How fast can you run a machine? Are you good at a machine? I don't know. So you can't go off of my numbers. You can't go off someone else's numbers. But for an example, say I bid a job at $2,000. You know, say it was a half acre. This is just an example. Half acre for $2,000. We were getting that 12, 13 years ago. That price. Back up 2 to 3 years ago, due to the cheaper machines, the amount of people in the area doing it. If I drive down Highway 25 or Highway 29 or anywhere around here, I guarantee you I will see multiple forestry mulchers first thing in the morning heading out to jobs. They're everywhere now. Everyone's got one. All the tree companies have one. So that $2,000 job went down to about $600-800 bucks, and you cannot make money doing that. You just can't. You have to be out there non-stop selling jobs, selling, running your equipment ragged into the ground. And you know, you got tires on trucks, you got fuel, you got teeth, you got wearables, there's so many things that come into play. It's so expensive to be in it. You can make more money with a simple skid steer and forks in a bucket. You can probably make better money doing that if you know what you're doing. You know, if you can go out there, like people are like, oh, you can make $1,000 a day, blah blah blah. But what they don't realize is you have $400 in expenses for that day. But my point is, the market here got flooded with everybody mulching. I say everybody, tons and tons of people mulching. You know, we used to work for landscapers to tree guys to landowners, you know, all these different people. And then everybody just started buying their own machines. Kubotas, like started buying Kubotas. They came out with the SVL 90, I think it's SVL, the 95s. You know, those sold like hotcakes around here. Everybody had one. And it just got to the point where I was getting really tired of running around trying to sell jobs, and I was competing a lot more. You know, we used to show up to a job, I gave them a price, we'd be, you know, do the job within 2 weeks, get out and get paid. You know, I'd follow up with the customer, hey, you know, how are we looking? You know, trying to sell the job, and like, oh no, we had 3 other people come out and you were the most expensive. 3 other people. You know, I tried to, you know, like every now and then, like, all right, well, if you don't mind me asking who got the job, or people I'd never even heard of, you know, oh, it's so-and-so's buddy, he got one and he got into this now and stuff. So, and then you drive by the job, you're like, oh, that looks terrible. But, so it was getting really, really hard to compete. You know, we tried other things. We tried doing the tree, you know, more tree stuff, and I'll still do mulching. You know, we still do it. I have 1 or 2 jobs out on bid for it, but I feel like the forestry mulching industry has gone in and towards nothing against landscapers or guys who cut grass, nothing against that. I know several people that cut grass and they make a very good living and they are very happy. I love cutting grass. I think it's amazing, you know, get those nice stripes. But I really think that's kind of where the forestry mulching industry is going. You know, in our area, everybody and their brother's got a, you know, pickup truck and a trailer with a lawnmower or two on the back, you know, and that's fine. They do very well. There is so many people moving to our area, and you know, there's a lot of grass to be mowed. You know, you can, I've told people this in the past, you can make a very good living cutting grass, and you can make a very good living forestry mulching. It's just how much effort and energy do you want to put into it. But the mulching is not what it used to be 8-10 years ago. It is not what it used to be. Due to flooded market, cheap machines and cheap cutter heads, which drove the quality ones way up. I don't know why, but you know, it's $40-something thousand for a new VCon these days. But so I don't know. That's just where we're at with it. So, you know, I've always liked to do like land clearing, grading, and the mulching on the side, but or try to do both of them. But at the same time, you got to do what you got to do for your family and your business. And you know, if it's the middle of winter and someone calls me up and we don't have any dirt work or any land clearing to do, and say, hey, can you do some mulching? I'll probably do some mulching, because I'm not going to sit around and wait for the perfect job to come along. But I do like the grading stuff. I've been really happy doing that. I've always enjoyed the dirt work, always enjoyed it. The only thing with the dirt work is it's a lot more weather dependent. Mulching, you can pretty much do year round, but the grading, you know, you get rained out, too wet, too dry, you know, stuff like that. But that's just kind of my take on mulching and where it's going. I think it's headed a lot more towards the landscaper route, and I think more and more people are going to be getting into it. It's more of guys do it by the hour, which is fine, you know, but they'll figure it out. It's one of those things that we were blessed, very blessed to have it when we did, and if I were to try to get into it now, I would not recommend it for anybody. Like, for example, there's a guy that he follows the channel, lives up in Hendersonville area. I don't remember his name, I'm not going to mention his name, but he called me up. He's like, hey, I bought this machine, I bought this, bought that. I was like, well, what'd you do that for? He's like, well, I want to get into mulching. I said, I wouldn't recommend it to anybody. He called me up a month later. He's like, yeah, I should have listened to you. So it's not what it used to be. It's hard work, which I'm not afraid of hard work at all. But one of the other things too I forgot to mention is the price of teeth. You know, the wearables, you know, stuff like that. You know, I remember buying teeth for, I want to say $16-18 a piece, something like that. That's cheap. I mean, you can't buy them for less than, I think, $38 or $40 a piece now. Something stupid. Same exact tooth. But everything's just going up. You know, machines are going up, heads are going up, you know, fuel's going up, everything is going up, and then the quality of work and the what you can sell a job for is going down. So I don't know. Let's get back to work here. If you guys have any other questions, I've been thinking about doing this video for quite a while. I hope it makes sense to people. But this is just my opinion. Don't take it to the bank. I have been doing this for a while, so I feel like I got a pretty good rap on it. You know, there's Davin, I dig it for. You know, he's been at it for quite a while. I'd be curious to know his opinions. Davin, leave a comment and tell me what you think. But I'm not gonna share any of his stuff money wise, but I think he does everything hourly, which is fine. You know, guys, that's what they do, and they have a set price. And but he doesn't have any employees. You know, he is very low cost, and you know, he's doing pretty good at it. But if you ask him, it's a very hard job. It is extremely hard. It's hard work. Always working on the machine, always maintaining, because you don't want it to catch on fire.